Okay. Abby says Tashlik with a twist, whispering transgressions and secrets into a goat's ear. Ooh, I love that, Abby. Wow, that's so cool. Love to hear more about that sometime. Okay, so yeah, I'd love to say to everybody, welcome once again. And I'd like to invite us to take a deep breath together just as an opening ritual. So just a moment of pause as we sort of think about leaving this year 5782 behind and coming into 5783. So what does that feel like in your body? What does that actually feel like to you? Feel free to take an in-breath with me and out. Just turning of the year, turning of the seasons. Yeah, so that felt good. All right, so my name is Rin Silverstein. I'm the community manager for Haggadot.com. I am here with Rebecca Missel, who is the director of partnerships and content. And we're also here with the One Table team, Johnny Christofferson and Abby Barash, who I will introduce in more detail as we get to their sections. All right, I'm gonna share my screen just a moment. Okay, let's see. Okay, bear with me. All right. Okay, so this is Hosting with Hospitality These High Holidays, as you probably know. So we're a project of Haggadot.com, and Haggadot.com invites every Jew, regardless of their background, to find a place for themselves in the Passover story, or ritual more broadly, so that they may create more meaningful, more personal, and more connective seders and rituals and Tashlich and Rosh Hashanah seders, et cetera, et cetera. So this is High Holidays at Home. This is what the website looks like. We'll be going into a little bit more detail with that later. And it's basically, if you are familiar with Haggadot.com, it's very similar, made by the same folks, us, and that's the tech team is the same. So a lot of it looks very, very familiar to you if you've used that before. And yeah, I just wanted to show you a little bit of that. We'll go into that more detail later as well. It's all going to be very cool. And we are projects of custom and craft Jewish rituals created by you. We're a design lab for the Jewish community, experimenting with technology, media, and video to imagine new formats for engaging with ancient traditions, which is, I think, an awesome way to start because that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. We're a 501c3 and community donations allow us to keep our resources accessible. So if you download any ritual booklets from us, if you are using the events platform, that's awesome. No need to pay if you can't afford to donate if you can't afford to, but we do appreciate it as it helps kind of keep our lights on and keep our tech running. So thanks in advance for that. Okay, so the topics for today: why gather and how to be a great host. Using highholidaysathome.com to host your gathering. There'll be some time for Q&A, and then there'll be a personal story of hosting from One Table's field team with Abby. Okay, so whether you have 2 people or 2,000 people or 200 people or 20 people at your gathering, these concepts are probably going to help you have a successful, meaningful, and engaging event. We still have about 10 days before Rosh Hashanah. So, and in addition to that, no rush, we also have a whole month of holidays in front of us, and to host or to join as a guest. So, but it's a really great opportunity for you to sort of stop and say, okay, like, why am I actually wanting to host? What is going on for me there? Why are you really gathering? And so I would ask for you to craft a purpose that's specific, unique, and defensible. By defensible, I really mean if someone asks you, why are you doing this? You can say, well, I'm doing this because blah, 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 blah. I want to host because, etc. And your purpose will then drive every other decision that you make. So who will be there? Are you just going to have close friends? Are you going to have family members? Are you going to extend your invitation to people who know your friends? How will you gather? Are you going to have a virtual event? Are you going to meet in person for maybe the first time in a while? What will you eat? Will it be potluck? Will it be catered? Are you going to have a Rosh Hashanah Seder with, a whole several maybe courses of food to plan in advance? And maybe most importantly, how do you want people to feel? I love this question because I'm a very touchy-feely person, but generally I love this question because I think it really helps us ask why gatherings are important and what it really means to host, right? So like to ask how you want people to feel is to ask what is most important to the people that you want to be there with you. So do you want them to feel connected? Do you want them to feel excited? Do you want them to feel inspired? Or do you want them to feel, maybe if it's Yom Kippur, do you want people to feel like deep meaning in what you're talking about? If not, like, you might not want people to be super cheerful, maybe, or maybe you do. But if it's Yom Kippur, you might want people to feel into the kind of solemnity of the day. So just, kind of think about how you want people to feel depending on what kind of event you're hosting. And then finally, what will you do together in this time and space that will never happen again? So think about it this way. You have your friends and family around you, and you might see them every day. You might see them once in a while, but you're never going to see them in this exact configuration again on this exact day with this exact other people and in this exact holiday. So it can be really helpful to also consider what you want to bring to that space to make it really special for that one time. So now I'd love to for folks to share in the chat, what's your purpose in hosting? Why do you want to host? If you want to put that in the chat, that would be awesome. And once those come in, I can start to read some of those out loud if I can see the chat. Dana says, create meaningful memories for my kids that will help shape their Jewish identities. Yes, I love that. Yeah, so that's a great one. That's really one that really involves who's going to be there, the how you're going to feel kind of comes into that as well, where people are kind of developing these strong Jewish identities as they grow up. That's amazing. Yeah. Anyone else? Set intentions for the new year. Yeah, one of the best things about Rosh Hashanah is that it gives us, a New Year's alternative to the secular New Year, I think, because that can be kind of commercialized, and Rosh Hashanah is sort of more spiritually meaningful to me, at least. So I think it's really lovely to have that that option to really set some intentions. Yeah. Anyone else? Abby says, I've been hosted so many times by others, and it feels like a gift to be able to create welcoming space in similar ways that I've been welcomed. Oh, yeah, absolutely. That makes so much sense, Abby. I love that. Yeah, so like giving back. And I feel like oftentimes when we give back, it gives more to us even, because we're giving back and we're feeling all of that energy going to our friends and our loved ones. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you. Okay, so let's, a couple other purposes you may want to think about are feeling the power of gathering together as we celebrate reaching a new year. Or to recognize that eating together is a sacred act that draws us out of our daily habits and into deeper presence. So there's a lot of ways we can really reach into what it means to host in order to elevate the act of eating, of dining together, and of enjoying each other's company. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing for a moment. We're going to open up a Jamboard. Rebecca, if you could put that link in the chat. If you're familiar with the Jamboard, it's a tool that we use sometimes in order to kind of, it's basically like a real virtual place to put Post-its. So kind of like a bulletin board, right? So if you follow this link, or I can also share my screen in a moment. If I can do that, let's see. One moment. Sorry, I'm trying to deal with the tech here. Okay, Rebecca, would you mind sharing your screen actually? Thank you. Kind of lost it. Oh, okay. Apparently the Jamboard link is not allowing folks.
Hit refresh,
Okay.
and it should work.
Great, thank you. Okay, so the Jamboard, if you go to the first page, actually, yes, thank you, says, what does hospitality mean to you? All right, great, thanks, Rebecca. And this has been pre-populated with some responses from our Facebook and Instagram pages. But if you'd like to, there's a little on the toolbar on the side, there's a little Post-it note that Rebecca's pointing to where you can just add anything you'd like into the Jamboard session. So yeah, I would ask, what does hospitality mean to you? And then we can discuss it as a group. So take a couple minutes to think about that question, and then we'll talk about it. Making everyone feel like family. Yeah. hmm That's a good one. Yeah, having my home feel festive. We also already have here making space for feelings, welcoming new people, making everyone around the holiday table feel like family, creating an immersive experience. Yeah. I feel like that one's especially helpful, especially in the age of social media and Instagram and phones, right? Where we're like trying to create what does it mean to be present here now and not just on our phones all the time. That's really important. Um, Getting creative and creating more seats at the table, even if I run out of actual chairs. Yeah, I love that. I love that. Awesome. Making others comfortable and having events accessible to all. Yeah, accessibility is really important to us too. Yeah, making sure that folks can access our events is super important. Being a home that people feel comfortable just stopping by. Yes, absolutely. That's wonderful. And I feel like that fits in kind of with accessibility too. Like, people want to go in there, people want to spend time with you because it's accessible and because people can know that they'll have a good time there. Being clear about what time people should leave my home. Yeah, taking the guesswork away from my guests. That's also great. And that's very much in line with setting expectations. Yeah, these are great. I love these. All right. So let's oh, there's a few more coming in, asking guests to bring their own traditions and rituals. Yeah, so sort of like a ritual potluck. Which is also how we sometimes describe haggadah.com and iholidaysatHome.com. Awesome. I love that. All right. So let's let's see. Is there anything else that people want to share that's just aloud or in the chat that's come up for them as we've been talking about this? It's okay if not. No, we're kind of a small group, so um all right. So I'm going to share my screen again if I can. Let's see. Okay, great. That's back. Okay, one moment. Okay, I'm going to go back to there we go. Oops, that's not what I wanted to click. Sorry. Oh, technology. Okay, here we are. Okay, so we already talked about this, so I'm going to go to the next slide. So yeah, how to be a great host. We did the Jamboard just now. And here are some sort of conclusions that we've also drawn in our kind of expert experience of hosting. So one is be gracious and hold the space. What does it mean to hold space? One thing that can mean is to really ask yourself, what do people need to come to the space to feel like they belong? What does that mean to you? Sometimes it can be helpful maybe to think, what would you need if you were visiting someone's house to feel comfortable? It's also very much about collaboration, I think, and about like, what does it mean to hold a collaborative space between you and the folks who are going to be there? What does that look like? Another really important thing that can help you be a great host is to have a beginning, middle, and end. One thing about rituals, which kind of gatherings I would include under that label, is that they can sometimes be a space outside of space or a time outside of time. So that can kind of mean, you're so present, you're so into it that you kind of like time seems to pass in an instant or sometimes really slowly, and it can kind of get wibbly wobbly a little bit of the time. So sometimes having a beginning and a middle and end can be really helpful in grounding that space. So yeah, so it's maybe have a think about what that might look like for you in your gathering. I would also say transitioning from what was before into the space can also be really helpful. And there are a lot of different ways to do that. So we modeled that earlier by taking a breath together to kind of transition us from whatever we were doing before the webinar into this space right here, right now. And there's a lot of things in our Jewish toolkit of ritual traditions that we can also pull from. So there's candle lighting, for example. So on Shabbat, when you light the ritual candles and you say the blessing, you're transitioning into Shabbat, and that creates a sacred time and space. There's also, yeah, just saying a blessing. You might want to say the Shehechianu if you're gathering people together for the first time in a long time. That might be a good one. So to have the blessing for newness and something, different. And there's also song. What would it be like to sing a song or a wordless melody, a nigun together? That can also be a really great way to start off the space in a strong kind of contained, boundaried way. And then, yeah, the question to make room for feelings is also really important. It may be the case that people haven't seen each other for a while and they might have a lot to talk about. They might have a lot to kind of reminisce about, and maybe there's might be some hard feelings have come up over the years of your separation, if that's been true for you. And make space for that. It doesn't mean you have to be forcefully vulnerable. Like, you don't have to be like, everyone, here's all the horrible things that happened to me this year. Like, I don't think that's necessarily what you want to do, but what you can do is sort of model some vulnerability if it feels good to you. You could be like, this last year, part of it was a little hard for me. And the reason for that is because, during quarantine, and maybe this was true earlier in the pandemic for some folks, but during quarantine, I couldn't see anyone for any, and other people be like, oh my God, me too. Like, who knew? And like, yeah, everyone knows, but also it can be helpful to kind of cultivate that type of like camaraderie, I think. So yeah, making room for feelings can really help support that. And then I would say also the question of what to do when you're together. Like, okay, great, you have all these people. What are you going to do with them? Well, there's a lot of things you could do. You could do some rituals before eating. Some of those are built right into our tradition. So like with the Rosh Hashanah Seder, for example, which is less common than the Passover Seder, but is actually part of Jewish tradition going back for about 2,000 years to the Talmud, to Jewish law and the books of the Talmud. It's possible to do some ritual and if you even wanted to go onto our site and look at the different booklets we have for Rosh Hashanah Seders, which I will show you a little bit later, there's a lot there that you can kind of use to kind of do some rituals before and after eating. There's also special foods. So again, during the Rosh Hashanah Seder, some communities, specifically Mizrahi and Sephardi communities, have the tradition of eating very special foods representing the new year, usually representing something that they hope to, a blessing that they hope to get during the year ahead. And interestingly, some of these foods, it's a little bit hard to explain, but some of these foods actually, the names of the foods in Hebrew either rhyme or are puns for some of the blessings that the people are asking for. So it would be kind of like, if you wanted to do this in English, like I don't speak Hebrew fluently, so I can't really do that. But if I were to do this in English, maybe I would say something like, if I had a pair, I'd be like, well, apparently I am going to be looking for this blessing. And like, it's silly things like that can also be really beautiful and can really bring people together. So that can be super fun. And just, making opportunities to make meaning and to gather folks together is always good, right? So, okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this screen again, if I can. There we go.
Do you want me to share the Jamboard again?
Are we at that? Hang on. Yes, we are. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, if you could. Okay, so yeah, this question sort of follows up from where we were just at. So how to make space for magic at your gathering. And magic might not be a word that resonates for you. So what about something special, something meaningful, and recognizing that, this group is only going to be together for this one time in this one way? What would that feel like for you? And there's some of the things that folks have come up with already are mezuzah moments, candle lighting, engaging the senses through scent, taste, touch, singing, table topics. So if you have multiple tables, maybe each table gets their own topic, or like if you have one table, maybe you're, in really diving into one juicy, gossipy topic, or, on the other hand, something maybe more solemn if it's Yom Kippur and you don't want to talk about gossip. You could also eat something special and really, really pay attention to how it feels in your mouth and how it tastes on your tongue, right? You could invite everyone to make a toast. This is a really common one for Rosh Hashanah Seders, which are basically, if you were wondering, are basically Shabbat dinners with like a few extra toasts. It's not really honestly a huge deal. So don't let that Seder word intimidate you. It doesn't have to be a huge Passover Seder. And once again, we can have some We have some ritual booklets if you would like to see more examples of that. Inviting our ancestors to our sukkah. Yeah, that's a great one. A new one that's just come in is take a walk together after the meal before dessert, a beautiful invitation to move our bodies. Yeah, absolutely. I am all for a wonderful somatic embodied exercise. So that's perfect. I love that. Yeah. Anything else that wants to come into the space? What else would feel really beautiful and magical to you if you were hosting? Including something tactile. Yeah, so definitely that's really good to engage those sensory aspects of ourselves. Yeah, that's great. Actually being able to touch and feel something. Yeah, definitely. All right. Unless there are any more coming in, I think we're done with that section. So why don't we, I'm going to use this moment to demonstrate our website and show you how to do some of this, how to use our technology to create a booklet for your guests. If you wanted to say create a Rosh Hashanah Seder, and I can show you exactly how you would do that. So yes, allow me to share my screen again. Okay, and I'll get out of this window. Forgive all of the kind of ruminating and moving around, but that's what we're doing. Okay, so Rosh Hashanah Seder. So you would go to highholidaysathome.com first of all, and you can go to, say you were hosting a Rosh Hashanah Seder and you wanted to see examples of that. You would go click Rosh Hashanah Seder on the homepage, and you would get a bunch of really great rituals to pop up here. We have a few examples. We have the 10-minute one, which will be the one we're going to look at. We have a bit more of an in-depth one here, which involves Tashlich. There's a few more down here, but let's look at the 10-minute one. So you just click on that, and that will pop up in a moment. Yeah, so this is what that booklet looks like. It's basically it's very simple, elegant technology. Has a bunch of different things in the tables of contents that automatically populates based on what's already in the booklet. And yeah, basically what you can do with this is you can, if you're like, oh, this is great, but I want to change a few things, or I want to add a few things, or maybe take things out, you can go up here and click use as my booklet template. And you would make your own booklet. So you would call this something like Friends Rosh Hashanah Seder. If you wanted to invite collaborators, that's great. You can invite your friends if you're working with them on it. And you have the choice to either share it publicly or to not do that at the moment, or ever. And you basically, what that does is if you share something publicly, anyone else in the community can see it. And that's can be really good, because if you want other people to access it from their phones, for example, at the table, that can be really helpful. But I can also understand if you don't want other people to see it, if you want it to be private, you can just press not now, and then that will be private. But in order to share with collaborators, you do have to click yes here, just as a note. So I'll click yes for now, and we will go to next and show you what that looks like. Hopefully that will load in a second. Yes, perfect. Okay, so this is what the sort of back end for the editing of the booklet looks like. You have everything has already been pre-populated in with everything that's already there, right? So if say you wanted to, say you're like, okay, this is a simple Seder welcome, this is great, but also I want to personalize it. I want it to be a little bit more me. You would remove it, or you could say yes, delete, and then you can say add clip. You can go over here, you could pick any of ours, or you could create your own, which is pretty awesome. And you would say, welcome to my Seder, or however you want to phrase it. It goes in introduction. And then if you wanted to, if it was actually a specific category of clip, for example, if it fits any of these different kind of, categories of things that, that you can kind of bookmark it as, then you can click any one of these that it, say it's like, say you're doing a whole Seder about embodiment, you might click, okay, great, embodiment. Or if you're doing a racial justice Seder, that's also awesome. You could click social justice or racial justice down there. But for now, we're just going to leave that because this is just going to be a plain Rosh Hashanah Seder. So we're going to pick our topic. It's Rosh Hashanah Seder, but you also have, a bunch of other options. And then once again, you are asked, do you want this to be a public clip or a private clip? And again, same deal. If you want people to look at it, public is great. Private is also fine if you're only using it for yourself. So I'm going to make it public and create clip. And then you'll get this little text editor segment here, and you can just write down anything you want here in this section. I'm just putting lorem ipsum there. And if you wanted to add, say, a photograph, you can do that by going to the little photograph icon up there, choose file. I'm going to go to my Haggadot file and click on something from there. And I'll upload this just to show you how it works. Great, and that's been saved. So I will keep editing for now, but you know that that's worked because then you can see the little art, the clip art right here, and the little words. So you can keep on editing for as long as you'd like, and you can make it really just customize it to be totally your own thing. You can also go back to add your own clip. So if you wanted to, or to add someone else's clip, you can go back to High Holidays at Home here, and you can go down to here and search, find community clips. You could say, okay, Seder. You could try to look that one up and see if anything comes up with that. Great, Rosh Hashanah Seder plate foods. That looks amazing. Or, oh, Dory Midnight has this awesome Finding All in the Unravel clip. I want to add that. So you go to that clip and you can press add to booklet here. And I add to Rin's Rosh Hashanah Seder. And if you clip in booklet. And yeah, and it's
Rin,
right
I think
there.
you might be like a half a step ahead just to give it just one extra sec. Yeah.
Oh, okay. To
But
like
you're good
sync
now.
up.
Yep.
Okay, great.
You're good now.
Great, thank you. Yeah, so this will appear in the introduction. If you wanted to move that to a different section, that's totally possible. You would just click reorder or move to a different section. So let's move it to closing. Just say you wanted to close with that. Then you would move it there. And there it is. And then if you wanted to preview your booklet to see what it would look like when it's all done, you can, well, or when you're finished and you want to see it as a whole, you go to preview booklet. And wait for that to load for a moment. And there it is. And obviously it would not say by custom and craft there. That's just because I'm the admin and I'm doing it. It would say your own name, but it has all of your little things that you've added. Yeah, and you can kind of go through and see what everything looks like. Great. So I think that's all I have to share around the Rosh Hashanah Seder gathering type of booklet stuff. Let me stop sharing for a second, actually. Okay. All right, so now I'm going to turn it over to Johnny. I'm going to introduce you. Let me find your bio. All right, give me 1 second. Great. So Johnny Christofferson is the customer success manager for Powered by One Table. He's originally from Long Island, New York, but moved to Colorado Springs, Colorado in November 2021. Outside of work, Johnny is an avid reader and movie lover. Johnny's main goal as a customer success manager is to help customers get the most out of their Powered by software. Welcome, Johnny. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Ren. So very nice to see all of you here. I'm going to actually be going over a little bit of how to create an event on the platform. So I'm going to share my screen. And a couple of things can you see this screen here, by the way? Perfect. A couple of things that you want to see right off the bat is if we go to events right here, we can find events. And this is going to show you all the events that have already been created on here. The nice thing is that we actually can sort this out by different holidays or a workshop, and you can find whatever events that are already created here and RSVP to them if they're open to you. We will have some as well, I think, down here that will say private events. So those you want to be able to do, of course. But if you want to create your own event, you can do it from that dashboard we were just on, or just right up here in the dropdown, you can click host an event. When this opens up, the nice thing is that anything that you want to do on here, if you do not fully complete it, it will tell you that you have things that are invalid. So it kind of just walks you through everything, which is really good. But what type of event this will be, you get to choose if this is going to be an open event where anyone can join. If it's host approval, meaning that it's going to be open to people to join, but then people are going to have to, the host will have to actually approve them. Invite only is going to be more of a private event or a solo event, which is just an event for you. I'm going to keep it invite only for now. Gathering type, we have a couple of different gathering types you can choose from. Virtual, in-person, indoors, outdoors, vaccination required or not required. It really is up to you. It is fully customizable. I will choose a virtual for now. And when we do that, you're going to see that this will change. And the reason it changes is because it doesn't need an address anymore. We're in a virtual location. And then I'll just show you again. In person, just going to show address down here as well as time zone. So let's go to virtual. Gives you a nice little drop down here. So this is a virtual event. So I'm going to just choose my event is taking place virtual. Holiday, let's do, doesn't matter. We can choose anyone that we want right now for the example, but whatever holiday you're going to be doing, or if it's going to be more just this more general, you can do holiday gathering. So I'm just going to choose Colorado Springs in California because that seems real. And then type of event we are going to be doing is any of these different types of events. If you wanted to kind of generalize it a little bit more, if this is going to be more cooking or families with children, whatever this event is going to be. So I'm going to choose cooking for now. And I'll just do zoom.com. And time zone, we'll do mountain time. Awesome. So that's just the first step here. Now we're going to go into actually creating the event name. This, again, can be whatever you want. This is going to be more or less to try to draw people into your event. So you want to make it as specific as possible. You know, you don't want to just say Rosh Hashanah. You want to actually give a little bit more detail of, you know, Rosh Hashanah under the California lights or California moonlight, whatever it might be. You want to put something a little bit more specific there for right now, because I am not creative at this time of the afternoon for me. I'm just going to put Rosh Hashanah holiday gathering. Maximum seats, you can determine how many you want. You can just click here, or you can just type in how many you want here. Date, same thing. We kind of just go through this drop down, choose whatever date is going to work, as well as the time and end time. And then you have a couple different options here. You can have it where there is an RSVP deadline, where maybe they have to RSVP 2 days before the 27th. So you'd hit yes, put that information in here. And you can also add a co-host. Let's say that me and Rin are going to be hosting this together. I can put her email in here, and then she will also get notified of the event happening and anybody that is going to be signing up for this. You also have the option right here to select your own cover image. It has to be lower than 2.5 megabytes. We do have some that are preloaded in here that you can use, but if you want to use your own, you can do that as well. I always recommend you don't need to put much information on this photo. It can just be more or less any kind of photo that will draw people in, because we do have an event details right down here, which is where you can put all that detail. So I'll sometimes see people put a bunch of stuff in the photo, but it just looks really tiny there. So you don't have to worry about that too much. Once we find the photo that we want, we go down to the event details. We have a description here. You do have to put something in for the description. It has to be 150 characters minimum. For right now, I'm going to just copy and paste this information here just so I can match that minimum. Extra details, that's just, again, if you wanted to throw a little bit more, that's not required, but maybe a little bit of when food is going to be served or time of people to leave, like we were talking about earlier, you know, keep the guessing out of it. We're going to be hosting this event and people have to leave by 10 o'clock, whatever it might be, you can put there.
Wear comfortable shoes for the after dinner walk.
Exactly. See, that's a perfect example right there. Link to the High Holiday resource. So this is the booklets that we were talking about before. You can link that right here, and that's just kind of a resource for your guests. Any kind of tags that you want to put in here, we have some that are pre-populated or pre-suggested. And this is just, again, to make it a little bit more specific. if we have a bunch of events on there, people might want to search by certain tags. So for right now, I'm just going to put mindfulness and young adult. Dress code, this is all up to you. You don't have to have one. You can have it as all, or if it's a certain theme, you can choose themed, whatever it might be. And then that information for that themed, dress code should be in these details up here. Because we are doing a virtual event right here, videos on by default, I'd have to hit yes or no, as well as closed captioning. This will change a little bit if you do a event in person. It's going to ask you more accessibility options, such as if there are stairs that have to be climbed, anything like that. There's going to have some accessibility things there. And then the last step here is asking your guests questions. This is an optional step, but if you have a question on here that you want to ask your guests, they do have to actually answer it. So we can have writing your own question here, or we have some that are pre-populated. What's your favorite high holiday tradition? And then single line answer. And we can add multiple questions. Again, this would be required then. Once we have all of this information here, all we have to do is submit this for approval. And then when that is submitted for approval, you will see it in the pending approval. And then Rin or Rebecca will look at the event, make sure everything is good on their end, and then actually approve it. And then it will be shown in your active area here. And that is going to be pretty much everything here. Like I said, you'll see that right in the pending approval, you'll see if you have any drafts, and then any events that you might be attending upcoming or that you've already attended. And I think it's back to me, but I was going to.
Yeah. Yes, it is back to you, but I can share my screen for the slides.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Okay, one sec. Let me get off of this and back to this. Okay, present. There we go.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Rin. So we were already talking a little bit about best practices in hosting. Rin had a couple of great examples. I kind of just broke it down a little bit more for engagement when it comes to before your event, during, and after your event. And feel free to read these on your own, to add any other ones in the chat if you'd like, to any ideas that you have. But one thing I always recommend is, know your audience and know yourself, have a clear agenda. Some people really want to be very specific and give the time that, hey, we're going to have food at 7 o'clock. We're going to be doing a board game at 8:30. If that is you, make sure you're including that in the details. There are other people that are more go with the flow, where they're like, we're going to have dinner between 7 and 8. If that's you, put that in, because if people know food is exactly at 7 o'clock, they're going to show up earlier as opposed to a more vague time. So make sure you have that clear plan. Accessibility, that's what I actually wrote in the Jamboard before. It's very important to be as accessible as possible, letting people know any kind of information that might be needed. Hey, we have a ramp here. There's going to be 4 steps you're going to have to go up. We're going to do a little party at the end of it. We're going to have some strobing lights. If that affects you, please let me know. I won't do the lights. Or if you're going to be leaving, whatever it might be, make sure you're just making it as accessible as possible, and you're just being open to hearing other people on what issues they might be having before they attend your event. Also, what I already said before is making it very catchy design title, trying to do something to grab people's attention. I think that is a really great way to just do engagement right off the bat, as well as being open to other people's ideas. Now, what I mean by that is you might have all these plans in your head of how you exactly want your event to go, but you might have a guest that gives just a suggestion. You don't have to take that suggestion, of course, but it's always good to be open-minded and see if there's any way you can incorporate it. It just makes them feel more part of the experience. And then the last thing before an event is sending out a reminder, maybe a day or so before, reminding them of the time, the activities, if they have to bring anything. It really helps to build up that excitement, and it really helps to confirm those who are actually going to be showing up. You might have 50 people that say they're attending, and if you don't send that reminder out, only 15 might show. With that reminder, it helps build up that anticipation and bring more people in. During the event, a couple different things. It depends on the kind of event you're having. If it's going to be with family, of course, then certain things might not really matter. Providing name tags or introductions is not going to be super important if it's going to be with your parents and your cousins that you've known your whole life. But if it's going to be more of a corporate event, or it's going to be different groups of friends that might not know each other, maybe doing some basic introductions is going to be helpful. Another thing is using conversation starters. The worst thing whenever it comes to any kind of events, in my opinion, is yes or no questions. Because if people don't know each other and you just say, just say, are you enjoying your time here? And they just say yes. That doesn't really lead open up into anything else. So maybe have some open-ended questions for this. Yeah, it's a great icebreaker, honestly. If you have any kind of ideas or any kind of questions you want to throw in the chat, feel free. But yeah, I always try to keep open-ended because it just leads to that conversation with people that might not be comfortable with each other yet. And then depending on the event, of course, make it fun or meaningful. So certain holidays, we can have more fun aspects too, while other ones, maybe we have to make it more meaningful and focus on more favorite traditions during that holiday. But having any of these kind of activities during your event, whether that is, again, just going on a walk, having maybe guided meditation, playing some type of game, talking about your favorite tradition during that holiday that you haven't celebrated in years because of what's been going on, whatever it might be, those are the certain things that you want to try to include during your event, just kind of make it more comfortable for other people. And then last but not least, these kind of go in two and two together, is sending thank you emails, especially if you are going to be doing another event. It really is helpful if you're like, hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate that you attended my event, 2 days ago. Just let you know, I'm actually doing an event for this high holiday coming up. So wanted to extend that invitation to you as well. And then depending on, again, if it's family and stuff, a survey or something like that might not really matter too much, but maybe sending out being like, hey, I want to know how this event went, like what worked, what didn't work. I'm trying to host more in the future, so would really love your input. And then asking for any kind of recipes or photos, anything that you might want to put on social media or even share with high holidays at home or with One Table, just so that we can see the success you had with your events. And that's it from me.
Thanks, Johnny. Sorry, I was having trouble finding the unmute button. All right. So thank you, Johnny. And yeah, I'd love to see if folks have questions at this point about either event making, best practices in hosting, or creating rituals, or anything else that's come up during the session so far.
Type in the chat or just come off with mute.
Yeah, feel free to do whatever's easier for you. Okay, if there's no questions, and feel free to keep them, coming if you do have one that comes up. Let's do one more Jamboard session. So Rebecca, if you want to screen share that again, that would be great. And the question this time is, what kinds of gatherings are you hosting this high holiday season, or thinking about hosting? You don't have to necessarily be gung-ho sure about it at this point, but what are you what's on the tip of your tongue? What's in the back of your mind right now around hosting? Here's a few examples. 2 Rosh Hashanah dinners and a sukkah party. Ooh, I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. Also got one of my favorites, home altar making. Always fun. Sukkah decorating party. I almost said dance party, but that could be great too. Break fast with breakfast foods. That's fun. Yeah, I love that. All day breakfast, except it's only at night. Perfect. Love it. Shabbat dinner, Rosh Hashanah dinner. Yes, amazing. Visiting ancestors in Elul is a popular theme sometimes. That's great. Shabbat Shuvah. Yep. So like the first Shabbat between, or the Shabbat between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. That's a great time for an event as well. Yeah. All right. These look great, everyone. Okay. Thanks. So yeah, I guess now would be a great time for Abby's story about hosting. So Abby Barash is One Table's Cascadia field manager, supporting hosts and guests throughout Oregon and Washington. Originally from the Midwest, Abby began her own meaningful Shabbat traditions as a student of religion and theology. When not supporting others in their Shabbat practices, Abby enjoys hiking, snowboarding, wine tasting, and volunteering as a mikveh guide. Thanks for being here, Abby.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Rin, and the High Holidays at Home team. It's really great to be with you all in community. This is such a treat, and it's so fun to be able to see the High Holidays at Home platform, which I don't get to see very often. So I'm going to share a little bit about why I host and what I get out of the hosting experience. So I grew up in a practicing Jewish family where my grandmother and my mother were typically, the hosts with the most. And Judaism and Shabbat for me feel really special because of my upbringing. And I also, as a kid and as a teenager, really oftentimes push back on it because I never felt like I felt like it was forced on me, right? Like that I didn't have a choice. And so I now, as a young adult, I love hosting. I love hosting Shabbat, not just because I work for one table, because I get to pick and choose what traditions I want to keep from my upbringing and where I get to create new ones. So I'm Jewish. My husband is not, he's Methodist. And what's really lovely is that he and I both get to take our traditions, our rituals, things that are meaningful for us, and we get to sort of blend them together into like our own traditions, and really play around with what feels cool, interesting, creative, different, fresh. And we really like inviting different people to our table. So a mix of like Jewish, Jewish, Jewish adjacent, even folks who aren't Jewish, to come into our home and to bring their rituals and traditions that are significant for them. I think that really adds to the experience at the table. And so for me, it's really a gift to be able to host, because I get to create this sort of this space for people to bring all their traditions and their rituals, and they get to share with me as a host what, how they can contribute to the experience. And I think one of the biggest things I've learned about hosting is that each person has to, figure out what the right cadence is. Sometimes I want to host every week, and other times I'm like, I need to take a break. And it depends if I want to have a larger gathering, a smaller gathering. And so I think hosting is beautiful. I also think it can be a lot of work. And so my advice for any hosts is like find the right cadence and the right style for you, and just lean into it. So that's what I wanted to share, and happy to answer any questions if there's space for that.
Thank you, Abby. Love that advice. Wonderful. Amazing. Yeah, I would love at this point, unless folks have further questions, and again, feel free to pop those in the chat at any time until close. Put in the chat or say out loud, because we're a small enough group, what's one idea you're excited to try this high holiday season? I'm excited to try this honey cake that Rebecca's sister apparently is really good at making. Rebecca wants to bring in more senses into her meal. Yeah. And Dana's excited to do a formal Seder. Awesome. I love that. Yeah, these are great. So yeah, more sensory experiences, more kind of formal Seders. These are fantastic. Yeah. Anyone else excited about trying anything? It doesn't have to be something huge either. It can be a little thing. And yeah, that recipe Rebecca just popped in the chat is what I was referring to. It looks really good. Abby wrote, in the past, I think I fasted on Yom Kippur because I'm supposed to. I want to reflect on the meaning of that ritual and figure out a happy medium between fasting and maybe adding something more meaningful. Yeah, that's so important. We actually also have in our High Holiday Guide this year, Turn and Return, we have a whole section on fasting and fasting alternatives. Thanks, Rebecca, for popping that in there. Yeah, so there's a whole bit about like, if you can't fast or if you don't like to fast for whatever reason or just can't, there's a lot of different spiritual kind of exercises you can do instead. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. All right. So yeah, thanks so much to everyone who's joined, to the One Table team for your expertise, your time, your wisdom, and sharing with our community today. Need to point out that you can find all our upcoming webinars and keep checking back for new events throughout the high holiday season, which is all the way, we counted as all the way through Sukkot. We also may have a few Simchat Torah kind of things as well. And yeah, just feel free to, follow us on Instagram if you like. We're Custom and Craft. And you can find, all of our events and all of our ritual booklets on highholidaysathome.com. And yeah, I would also say if you need to email us with any questions, that's info@haggadot.com. And Rebecca can put that in the chat as well. Thank you. All right, time to do a closing ritual, something brief but fun that is maybe a little on the cheese spectrum, but I think it's fun. It's kind of campy. So basically how it works is we all put our hands towards our cameras like this. I'll try to use both hands. Yeah, awesome. And once you've done that, we count down from 3, and then you say Shana Tova at the end, which means Happy New Year. So 1, 2, 3. Shana Tova.
Shana Tova.
Yay.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thanks so much, everyone. So great to see all of you.